What has happened past week? um, the last time we spoke, I communicated with you that I'm going to, when my daughters contact me, or any one of them should, that I will tell them that, I am in therapy, and that, I can have social contact, but not contact about the father's estate or about issues. It's not good for me. And they haven't contacted me, so I haven't done that, because I want to do it as a response. I don't want to do it just as a statement, yeah?
Right.
But then, I don't know if you want to just give me guidance in that respect, in terms of the fact that I want to do it as a response and not as a statement.
So I think that's fine. If you want to wait for them to come to you, if you want to wait for them to reach out, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe you have some hesitation because you're afraid they won't respond or something of that nature. But that's okay, because like you said too, they're going through their own grief process around their father. So they have, their own things that they're working through. And when they feel like they can contact you, then that would be good. My only concern is with your youngest daughter. The fact that your oldest daughter might be planting ideas in her mind and making her imagine things that aren't real, about your relationship with her and about things. So, maybe down the road, if you don't hear from them for a while, and if you suddenly get this feeling like you want to reach out to them, then listen to your intuition, but listen to your intuition all the way. So if your intuition is saying, don't contact, just wait for them, then do that. Trust your intuition. But if you start getting these feelings like out of the blue, you start thinking about one of them or both of them, and it's like it keeps you up at night, or you can't stop thinking about it, then that's your intuition telling you to take some kind of action.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I hear you. So I just want to take it from there. What has happened the past week, in fact, I don't know how much I have shared with you in terms of the dad and his estate, and, all the winding up of his business, and, and so on. He had a business, and it's in the financial services industry, which is very heavily regulated, yeah? And with our first meeting, and he was in the process of selling the business to the person who was managing the business. Yeah, that he was in that process. So there was a buy and sell agreement in place, which, it took a long time for them to actually find the buy and sell agreement. I don't know if the person, the manager, the buyer, if she just was withholding information. I don't know. But what did happen was that when we had our first meeting with the executor, who had subsequently withdrew as executor, I offered to finance the business until such time that the executor has the powers, because they need to get the powers from the master's office before they can start operating. So the banking accounts were all frozen, all of those things happen. And what needs to happen is that the insurance company that he's insured with, they would, in terms of the buy and sell agreement, they would come to the business and they would place a value on the business, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And my fear was that you can reduce the value to more or less zero if there's no flow of business. So because there wasn't going to be money to keep the business, there would be money in the business which they couldn't use in the company, because their bank account was frozen. I offered to finance for a few months until, there was cash being generated, yeah?
Right.
Which was not accepted at the time. And my oldest daughter, and my brother-in-law, apparently they put some money into the business at the time to keep it afloat. But of course, the honeymoon period runs out. So there are problems with the newly appointed executor in terms of the master's office. So the newly appointed executor has not yet received the authority from the master, which means that there's no cash available. Meanwhile, there are salaries that need to get paid and operational costs and. What I do know, and I have evidence of that, is that the manager who's supposed to buy it has been generating business in the name of the company and with the company's clients as well, but diverting it to another business through another business entity. That I do know, and I have evidence of that, yeah? So it's actually not true that the money that was generated is all tied up in the business, because it's not. She had been getting her slice of the cake, and in fact, she's running a business, her own business on the side, let's put it that way, using the infrastructure of the existing company, yeah? Because now, staff needs to be paid, telephone, internet facilities, everything needs to get paid. I mean, the operational expenses, yeah? Right. So she had been using the infrastructure, and I'm aware of that, and I know, and I have those skills, but my daughters don't have those skills. And that's why when my daughter came to me initially and she asked me to assist, I said I would help. And then I tried to intervene, and then I was told to back off.
By this other person?
Well, by her also.
By your daughter also.
And then by my daughter, yeah?
Okay.
My older daughter. So I decided, okay, I'll back off. That's cool. Okay. Then, of course, these other things happened as well. So I decided, well, no, I actually don't want to have anything to do with it. So during the week, I received an email from my daughter, my older daughter, that the attorney had written to her saying that, they need this money, a certain sum of money, or else, because what we call the Financial Services Board, the regulatory body, they had appointed somebody, to oversee the function of this, it was an unnecessary expense now, yeah? Right. But now there's some independent person who's been overseeing the functions, yeah, of the business. And there's now all this money that needs to get paid, and if the money is not forthcoming, then they're going to shut down the business. Right. The regulatory body will shut down the business because, the business is, for all intents and purposes, not functional, which means it can't be sold as a going concern. Yeah? Right. So, so now I don't want to say to them, look, actually, this is where I'm at, and I don't want to have anything to do with it. But I'm just not saying anything at all. I'm just leaving it be. It's a mess that you guys got yourself into. Of course, it affects how much money is going to go into the estate now. Right. But I'm long past caring how much money does or doesn't go into the estate. Yeah, it's not my bother. I think so. They feel probably at a loose end at the moment, because the only person whom they can talk to who has some business savvy in that regard would be me. And now I'm not making myself available to talk to them. Yeah. Because, I mean, much as their father's family got involved with them and, you know, told them all kinds of things and probably put up this front that, oh, you know, we're supporting you and your mother is, you know, unfair in the way she's treating you and so on and so forth, you know, that wears thin after a while, and especially when they get to a situation where they're actually out of their depth now.
They're actually what?
They're out of their depth. They're out of their depth. Yeah, because they don't even know. And there are people who can help besides myself, but they wouldn't even know how to start that process. They wouldn't even know who to go to. Because I will have said, look, I don't actually want to do it, but I would advise that you go to X, Y, or Z and get that person involved in the process. Yeah.
Right.
So at least the first thing I will have done was say, approach the accountant and ask the accountant to put in some controls to, you know, have an oversight function there to do that. That's what I will have done. Yeah. If I didn't want to get involved myself. So anyway, so I think they're at a little bit at a loose end at the moment. But yeah, I don't want to make it my problem. Because I just, and it may sound as though I'm cold or I'm heartless, but I don't want to set myself up again.
I think you're very wise, very, very wise in the way you're approaching this. You know, you're approaching the business situation as if you were dealing with a one-on-one interpersonal relationship with a narcissist, because it sounds like that other person who got involved has some of these narcissistic traits. And I think you're being very wise not to step in there and try to fix things and get too involved, because that sounds just like a big mess, right? And they even asked you not to get involved. So it's almost like going no contact, right, with the narcissist. And that's where you're at right now. And I also think, like, I want to give you a big pat on the back for being able to let go of the need or desire to control that, to control the outcome, to control the money in the situation and the estate and how that gets divided. I think that's very wise of you to be able to let go and just let happen what happens. Because if you try to get involved in that, that could just turn into a nightmare. I think you're approaching this in a very healthy way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because when my daughter asked me to get involved, and she said, look, I have been, once she said to me, I don't trust this person. And I said, okay. I said, one, this business doesn't belong to her. There is a buy and sell agreement, and there is an insurance policy that covers that in terms of, you know, when the person dies, then, you know, she will get, the estate gets paid and, you know, she gets the business, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I said, but that hasn't happened. And so, in fact, she shouldn't be pulling the strings here. She's working for us at the moment. Yeah. Right. So I started asking her, like, I asked her for, I said to my daughter says, well, you know, you can make contact with her. So I said, no, I don't want to make contact with her because I've never had contact with her. I don't want to come in from the cold.
Right.
So you contact her and you ask her if it's okay if I make contact with her. And,
Very
in what
cautious.
regard I will be talking to her. Yeah?
Yeah, be very, very cautious because she sounds like a narcissist.
Yeah, which my daughter then did. She said to her, okay, my mom is going to be talking to you. And then she agreed. And then I contacted her. And I said, look, I need to come and talk to you. I need to look at some financial reports. I need to do certain things. And she was extremely short and abrupt in her response to me. And then I spoke to my daughter about it because I didn't know this person from a bar of soap, yeah? And then she said, oh, Mom, no, it's the nature. She is like that. And then when my daughter asked me for the second time to assist, so I thought, okay, now I need to be more kind of forthright, yeah? And I said, I need the following documents, and I need to have a meeting, and this is what I need, and, and then my daughter phones me, and she says to me, oh, this woman says that was very angry with my, my communication with her.
Yeah.
And she said, well, she doesn't have to work under these circumstances. And if that's the case, then she will leave. It's like kind of, I'll just leave this business to run itself, if that's the way you guys want to operate. So my daughter felt a bit insecure, and she comes back to me. She says, no, Mommy, just don't do anything about it. I said, but the reason why I communicated with her was because she had given you the okay. I didn't go there and force myself upon her. In fact, I did it through you. I asked you to open that door, which you did, and she agreed that it was okay, that we could have a meeting and that she would discuss certain things with me. Yeah? So I don't know where this is now coming from. And my daughter was just like a sucker good. No. Just leave it. Don't talk to her. Just leave it to the executor at the time, the one who had now withdrawn as executor. Yeah. Just leave it to her. And then to him. And I thought, but the way in which this is now my daughter, then I was angry with her. I thought the manner in which you are now approaching it is as though I had done this, just on my own. And I'm saying to her, but I did that because you had initiated it. Yeah? You asked, you initiated, you told her that. So I didn't just go there and bombard her or crash this, I said I did it. And then afterwards I thought, I'm defending myself with my daughter.
That's exactly how it works.
Yeah, why am I on the defensive? I'm like, and I'm like, but I did it because you said it was okay. I asked you to open the door, and you agreed, and she agreed, and so that's why I did it. Yeah, and I'm being defensive. Yeah. And then I was very angry because I thought, now what kind of communication took place between yourself and the manager? Did you say to her, well, I'll call my mother and I'll fix her? I'll talk to my mother. Like, I have this power over her where I can tell her off. It was the way I felt. Yeah. So anyway, so I just decided, well, okay, no more. I'm done. I am done with, I am totally done with this. And so that was one of the reasons why I just took this other position of no communication, no nothing. I don't want to have anything to do with this. You guys sort it out. My attorney will talk to the person who's doing the winding up of the business and who's managing the estate. My attorney will talk because I don't know if I told you, but there's a settlement which is outstanding because he never paid me my settlement. So it's about my settlement, and all I'm interested in is the money that he owes me. That's it. Yeah. So anyway, so I just decided, let me just step out of this whole thing because I'm not interested. Yeah. As long as I get what I am due to get, that's it. Yeah. So yeah, so they I think at a bit of a loose end at the moment because clearly they don't know how to manage the situation. But for myself, I've been quite fine. I haven't felt that I'm being nasty or bitter. There was a little bit of, okay, told you so, Okay. There was a little bit of like a kind of victory moment for me, admittedly.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't want to gloat,
Right.
But yeah, there was that moment of victory. And for me, the moment of victory is more, I hope that you guys are learning the lesson here.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Learn the lesson because So that's basically it. So yeah, I'm just going about my life doing what I would normally do and not have myself consumed by any of this stuff.
You are doing really well. I think you sound very clear about that, and the way you were able to approach that and just let go and not try to control it and not try to fix it, and like as soon as you recognize that you were defending yourself, when they invited you, like it wasn't like you were butting in or you were trying to interject yourself. They invited you because you had the know-how, didn't go well, and then you took a big step back. And I think that's really wise. It's really clear the way that you're seeing that, and it's really a healthy perspective because that's like a beehive, and if you try to get involved in there, that's just going to be a mess. And I just want to give you a big pat on the back for that because that's really, really healthy. Really
Thank
healthy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. I think Candy is she still there? Oh, she's hi, Candy.
You can unmute your microphone if you wanted to speak with your voice, or you can write in the chat too. Either way is fine. Okay, she says she broke no contact and she's not doing great. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm giving you a big hug. I know how hard it is to stay away from the contact, and then as soon as you get sucked in, it seems like it's a good idea, whether they contact you and you respond or you reach out and you're trying to get justice for something that they owed you or something that they did to you. And it just always you end up feeling powerless because when you go, when you break the no contact, they're taking advantage of you. Oops, I'm sorry. I'm going to mute the audio there so there's no interference. They end up taking advantage of you. They end up getting the power back. You end up feeling helpless. You end up feeling like you can't do anything in the situation. You end up feeling worse just because it re-triggers you back, like all the past memories, everything that happened in the past, all the unresolved things, all the questions that you still have, all that comes back to the surface. And then on top of it, you're probably beating yourself up about it. It's like, oh, why did I do that? I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew better. What was I thinking? I wasn't thinking. I did it. I know, I've been there too. And I'm really sorry. I know how hard that is and how disheartening it is. And right now, the best thing you can do is just to vow to cut off again. If that person should reach out to you, or if you should have any desire to reach out again, just tell yourself, I already learned that lesson. I'm not going back. Don't beat yourself up for what happened. You're not stupid. Everybody feels that way pretty much. We all go, oh my God, I'm so stupid. Like, why did I do that? Right? You're not stupid. Like these are the dynamics of the abuse cycle. It is so easy to get swept back into that, either because the person reaches out and they send you, I love you, I miss you, and then your heart goes, they really do care. They really are going to change. It's okay, and you reach out only to be destroyed again. Or, maybe in your case, I know because we had corresponded on this, you were thinking about an injustice, that this person did to you. And yeah, it says you broke it. He never hoovered this. In your case, you were thinking about the injustice that happened and wanted to reach out to help him make it right, but they're never going to make it right. They're never going to see that. They're always going to walk away the victim. They're always going to justify how they're the victim and they don't owe you, no matter how obvious it is that it was so unfair. I mean, it could have been like, they could have legally signed a document. Like I went into business with this guy who signed a legal contract that he was going to pay me in exchange for me giving him the business that I created. And I gave him everything and I trusted that he was going to pay me, and he never paid me. And we signed a legal document, and the attorney said, I'm out of here. I'm not getting involved in that. That's your problem. All he cared about was getting paid. He didn't care about justice. He didn't care about the law. He didn't care about having us sign this contract, which was, worth absolutely nothing. And that's what these narcissists will do, is all they care about is themselves. They don't care how wrong it is. They don't care if they're actually breaking the law. It doesn't matter to them. They will find some way of twisting that in their own minds, and they'll truly believe it. They'll truly believe that they're the victim, that it was your fault, and even if it's just the fact that like you were in a romantic relationship with them and you left because you realized what was going on and you cut him off, and he's angry and spiteful and wants to do something to hurt you and justifies to himself why he's going to do that because you left him. You didn't stand for more abuse. You didn't stick around for more abuse. You didn't let him continue to destroy your life. And they never admit they're sorry. They never admit what they did wrong. The only time you will ever hear an apology from these people is if it's some way for them to get you to take the blame. I'm sorry, but you made me do it. I'm sorry, but you made me say that. I'm sorry, but if you hadn't have left me, if you hadn't have done this, if you hadn't have whatever, then I wouldn't have done that. So really it's all your fault, and they'll hook you in on that apology, and then they'll slam that at the end. Or worst case scenarios, like you go in a very long conversation, they're admitting what's going on. You're thinking, oh my God, we have a breakthrough. It's like, it's a miracle. And they're saying they're sorry and they're admitting accountability. And then at the very end of that conversation, 3 hours, exhausting hours later, they're like, nah. And they take it all away, and they say like one thing that just deletes every bit of progress you made during the last 3 exhausting hours in conversation. They don't ever admit it. They just don't. They go on justifying to themselves how it's right, no matter how awful it was that they treated you, no matter how much they broke the law doing so, no matter how unjust the situation is, they will never see that. They will never make amends in the way that a normal human being would, because that's just not how they are. It's just not. And, I think that's probably the hardest part for every one of us who got into one of these situations, whether it was a romantic situation, a friendship, a neighbor, a boss, a coworker, a business partner, a parent, it's that hoping and praying, the wishful thinking that they're going to realize what's wrong, that they're going to make it right, that they're going to pay you back what they owe you. They're going to fix what they did wrong. They will never do it. They will never do it. And that is like the hardest part to accept, that it's not going to happen. I'm so sorry. I know it's so frustrating to see that. And it's so unfair. And it's like, you just want the universe to realize that. And then you look at him and it's like, why does he get away so easily? Like, why does he get everything? And I lost everything. Like, how is that fair? Where's karma? Hello, karma, right? But it's like, sometimes it just takes time, and they will get it, because that's just the way this universe works. Like, they will get it at some time. And I think another hard part for people is the forgiveness aspect. and it's how hard it is to forgive when things haven't been made right, and that's the reconciliation, which is different than forgiveness. When a person makes it right, when they did something to hurt you and they make it right, then you can have reconciliation in the relationship, even if you're not going to go on together forever, but to be able to be okay with that person. It's never going to happen. The forgiveness is for you. It's to set you free. It's to set your heart and your mind free. It's not about that person. It's not about forgetting what they did and getting back into the same situation with them or another person. The forgiveness is simply the release of that heavy emotion, because that's the trick. That is the dirtiest trick that every narcissist will play, is they will hurt you. They will make you sad. They will make you hurt. They will do something to you. And what it is they are transferring their negative feelings onto you. They wake up that morning and they feel shame. Or they wake up that morning and they feel, extreme insecurity, and they can't deal with that feeling, and they're not going to ever admit that that's how they feel. So they have to do something to you or to whoever else is around to hurt them, to pass that negative feeling. And as soon as they see that you're angry, you're resentful, you're bitter, you're upset, they have succeeded. They have succeeded in transferring that burden of the heavy emotion to you. And now you're stuck with it because you feel like shit, because you've been wronged, because you've been hurt, because someone did something horrible to you. And it's normal to feel awful about that. But the hardest part is to recognize that, if you walk away with that and you don't process that and let that go and forgive that, because the forgiveness is that lubrication that lets it go. And again, that's for you, that's not for them. Because what that forgiveness does is return that karma back to sender, and until then, you're going to be holding on to that. And that emotion is like a mass. It's like a heavy mass of energy that you're holding on to. And then the universe is magnetizing to you more of that, more of those feelings. You can't get out of that feeling. More people come into your life and they create similar kinds of situations to reinforce how you're actually feeling, and you attract that. And then it seems like you're carrying their karma, because in a way we are, if we take that with us, and forgiveness, it usually doesn't just happen like suddenly in a one moment and it's all gone. It's like layer by layer by layer, and you get rid of this layer, and then like a week later, something happens and it triggers more of that anger or that resentment. You're like, okay, still got some anger. You release more of that and you release more of that. And it's like layer by layer, and you're shedding that off. And if you were in a relationship for a really long time, it's like layers and layers and layers and layers deep of stuff. But the more you release that, the more you can let go of that, the more of that karma will be returned to that person. And maybe it's not like you suddenly see in the newspaper that he's met financial ruin. Maybe it doesn't work out that way. Maybe it works out that he wakes up in the morning and he just feels horrible, and he just can't find a way to deal with that. He can't find a person to dump it on, and he's trying desperately, and it's just like destroying him, and he feels awful. And maybe you don't get to see that. And maybe you don't realize what's going on and how much he's suffering, and how he's actually dealing with his karma, which has been returned. And maybe you don't get to see that. Or maybe you get really lucky and you know somebody who knows him, and I know that you do. And maybe somehow you find out through the grapevine that something happened. My luck was that, my former business partner did this, and people that I know still live in that area where he was. And they said, wow, I saw him, months later, and wow, he looked horrible. Like he looked so bad. He wasn't himself at all. Like he was really confused and discombobulated, and he just looked really bad. And I was like, that's karma. Yeah, he's still running the business. He got away with that. It doesn't sound like he met financial ruin yet, but deep inside, the part that you don't see, the part that a lot of people don't see, they're suffering because they have to live with themselves every single day. You got to get rid of him. You won because you got rid of him. You cut your losses. You lost a lot, but you cut your losses and you got rid of him and got him out of your life. But that guy has to wake up every single morning with himself. He has to look in the mirror and face himself. And even though they don't really have a conscience the way you and I do in terms of knowing what's right and what's wrong and feeling awful if you know that you did something wrong, he has to live with that deep feeling of shame, inadequacy, insecurity, that gnawing feeling of like boredom or got to get something and got to do something and got to have something. And maybe his needs aren't getting met. Maybe he can't find someone to abuse immediately. And maybe he actually has to deal with those feelings for a while. And you just don't see that. But trust that karma will happen. Trust that he will get his if he's not already. And trust that sometimes you just don't see. Sometimes you just don't know. If you're really lucky, you get to see that. And I know that doesn't sound super spiritually enlightened to want to see someone meet their karma. But the reality is when you have been through what you've been through, you know, with narcissistic abuse, people don't understand what that is if they haven't been through that. And when you have been through that level of abuse and that level of destruction and devastation in your life, it's kind of natural to smile a little when you see that, like, thank God, you know, balance has been restored in the universe. Like, thank God he got some of that back, because it doesn't seem right that someone can get away with that. And, you know, not to gloat too much in that, but just to, like, if it comes up and you happen to hear through the grapevine that something happened, or he just happens to be miserable, or he just looked really awful or whatever, then you can smile and be like, all right, it's okay. You know, you can trust more that it's going to happen, but know that the universe will bring that karma back at some point. The work that you have to do, and the only control that you have in the situation, is to work on the heavy feelings that you have left. The anger, the resentment, the bitterness. It's just not fair. All of that, that's what you got to deal with. That's what you got to let go of and release, because that is the only way that karma is going to go back to him. It's the only way you're going to get rid of that, and you're not going to keep carrying that burden forward, because you don't want to carry that. That is not yours. You want to set yourself free so that you can open yourself to new possibilities in this life. You know, you don't want to take that with you. And I'm really sorry. I'm sending you a big hug. I know how hard it is. I've been getting so many messages over the last week or 2 weeks. People are getting contacted. Either they're getting hoovered back, or they're just suddenly something comes over them and they reach out, you know, and it goes really bad. And like at first, maybe it seems really great. And maybe at first it feels awesome that you just told this person your mind and what they owe you, but it's always going to come back to bite you. It's just not going to go well. The only way to win that is to cut off. Don't beat yourself up for, you know, reaching out to him. Don't beat yourself up. You know, to those who are listening, if you got hoovered and you responded, don't beat yourself up for that. Recognize the lesson that you learned. Remember the lesson, you know, because forgiveness doesn't mean you forget what you learned. Forgiveness means you let go of those heavy feelings, that you're not going to carry that with you, but you remember that lesson. You remember real clear the lesson that you learned, so that you don't have to make that mistake again. And the lesson to really learn out of these situations is no contact. No contact is the only way to move forward with peace of mind, with peace of heart, to be able to heal the past. It's the only way forward. It's the only way to take your power back. It's the only way to take steps forward without bringing all of that with you. So I'm proud of you for realizing, you know, the mistake that happened. I'm proud of you for going through that. And now you know what to do. Now you know what to do for yourself. Now you know what to do to protect yourself. Now you know you don't need to reach out again, because it's just nothing good is going to come from that. It's just not. He's never going to be sorry. He's never going to make it right. He's never going to suddenly have this epiphany that he's a jackass and he should make right what he did in the world. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I know that's a very sad reality to face, but it is reality, you know. It's just, that's the reality when dealing with narcissistic abuse. Is there anything in particular right now that you're finding like unresolvable about the situation, or are you pretty clear now about what's going on, about the fact that he's just not going to make it right? Is there something left unresolved? Okay, I got a message here. It says, I was with a narc for 20 whole years. That is a long time. Living with him was more of a sacrifice than being on my own. Trying to divorce him took another 10 years of my life. He then appealed and never paid me the settlement due to me. He passed in November last year, and the matter is still pending. Delaying finalizing the divorce process was his way of continuing to control. there are so many situations like that where people say this exact thing, that they try to divorce this person and they make it impossible to divorce them, or they don't sign the papers, or they sabotage the process. And you're right. You're exactly right. It's the only way he can continue the control. Because once you leave, they don't have control of you anymore. You know, if you're sharing children, they're going to use the children as pawns to control you. If you signed a marriage document, then they're going to control the divorce process with you. The property, they're going to make that complicated. It's so complicated. You did really well to leave. Like 20 years is so long. So many people just rationalize to themselves, well, 20 years, it's never too late. It is never too late to start your life over. If you're listening to this and you've been in a relationship like this for decades, it is never too late to get out. You did the right thing to get out. You did the right thing to initiate that divorce, even though he didn't finalize that. And even though now he's dead and you're still trying to finalize the settlement that's owed to you, I really hope you can get that through the legal system there. I really hope you can get what's owed to you, because it isn't fair, and I think that you're right too, to let go of that control, to know that like what's going to happen is going to happen, and to go after what's owed to you. But if you reach that point where you have to sacrifice your peace to move forward on that, then you really need to reevaluate, like it's so unfair. When they owe you all this money, when they owe you all of this, whatever it is that they owe you, but at a certain point, sometimes it'll happen that even the legal system can't meet justice for you. Like that's what happened to me. And I had to realize that, I could go and try to find an attorney. I didn't have the money to do that, but I could have gone and tried to find an attorney and tried to like take him to court and everything. But how much of my peace was I going to sacrifice? Like how much was my peace worth at that point, she says, I'm just so exhausted after it this weekend. I know it is utterly exhausting. There's a question. What does hoovering mean? Hoover is like a vacuum. It's like a brand of vacuum. And what it means is after you've left the person, Hoover, they're like trying to suck you back. And usually it'll come in the form of, I love you. I miss you. You're such a wonderful person. I miss waking up every day with you. I miss your presence in my life. I miss your cooking. I miss this. I miss that, whatever it is. And they're going to find that thing that, where your heartstrings are connected. And that's what they're going to hit on. Or they're going to do that future faking where they promised you something in the future that they knew you wanted. Like maybe they were married and they were always promising you they're going to leave their husband or their wife to be with you. And they're like, so-and-so just moved, my husband or wife just moved into the guest room. It's only a matter of time now. We're going to be divorced and then I'll be free. Anything they can do to hook you back again. And you don't want to fall for the hoovering. She said, I walked away financially insecure. I avoided all contact. Trust me, it works. It does. It is so hard to walk away from that when that person owes you, or like your financial well-being depends on that. Depends on the justice in that situation, depends on getting what you got. Like I left that last situation last year with nothing, with like a couple $100 in the bank. And that was it, and that I needed that money desperately from him. And he knew that. And that's particularly why he screwed me over like that, because he knew. And sometimes there's just no getting justice with these people. And the only way to win is to walk away and cut off contact. I knew that any more emails I sent him was just going to lead to destruction, was just going to lead to more pain, was just going to lead to him trying to manipulate me more, trying to launch more false accusations against me. You did it right. It's so hard when you are financially insecure to walk away from a situation where they owe you money, but you definitely did the right thing, and to cut off contact like that. It does work. It is the only way to keep your sanity, and how much is your sanity worth to you? He didn't hoover me. He hated me, but I feel he never let go of his somatic ex. Yeah, he hated you because you realized who he was. You realized who he was. That's why he hated you. That is what they absolutely hate the most. It is what will send them into an absolute rage fit when you figure them out And now they're terrified that you're going to tell other people who they are, because other people haven't figured them out. They haven't revealed themselves. They haven't taken off that mask to other people. They're still duping other people. Their worst fear is public outing, is for people to realize what's going on, public perception. And the fact that you realize they hate that. They absolutely hate that. And that's why they try to destroy you after you leave. That's why you have to cut off contact, because they will try to destroy you once you realize the truth of who they are. And he said he never let go of his somatic ex. You know, remember, every one of these narcissists has at least one person in their life who is their enabler. You know, in Spanish, the word for enabler means accomplice, accómplice, right? Because that person is their accomplice, even though that person is possibly not doing something wrong. In this case, it sounds like she might be a narcissist as well. Sometimes it happens that two narcissists are together, or a borderline and a narcissist, or a narcissist and a sociopath, you know, and in this case that might be true, but she might still be enabling him. There might be something that she gets out of that relationship. You know, she uses him for some kind of status, you know, maybe he's like powerful businessman, banker, whatever. He makes a lot of money. He has some kind of status in the community, and that's important to her. And so she maintains the connection because she wants the status, or she wants his money, or she wants whatever. She gets money from him, right? So she's using him for that situation. So she's going to enable the abuse. She's going to put up with it. She's going to make excuses for him to herself, why she should keep, you know, accepting that, why she should keep this person in her life. She's going to make excuses and rationalizations. She's going to make excuses to her children for his behavior. She's going to make excuses to her friends, to her family, because her friends and family are going, oh, what's going on there? That doesn't sound so good, you know, or she's just not going to talk about it, because if she keeps it silent, then nobody knows what's going on. And she just keeps perpetuating the illusion. And the only reason she's perpetuating that illusion is because she's getting something out of it, you know, and it could be a codependent that gets into this situation. You know, sometimes an extreme codependent, an extreme enabler who's unable to get out of that because they're so desperately dependent on that person in their life, you know, and it could just be because that person has convinced them that they're not good enough, that no one will ever love them, that they're not, you know, capable of surviving on their own. They're not capable of paying bills on their own. They're not capable of living in this world on their own, or no one will ever love them because, you know, their face is slightly crooked, or they're slightly overweight, or, you know, something is wrong with their physicality that makes them less desirable to other people. And over time, they've actually come to believe that. And that's why they stay, because they genuinely believe that they're not good enough, that they can't make it without this person. And that will happen sometimes too. And there are plenty of people who stay with narcissists forever. And the narcissist always needs that one person who's always going to be there, because when people like you realize who they are, you know, because they'll like to pick secondary supply sources from very strong, independent, you know, brilliant, amazing people who have this free spirit, you know, because they want to break your spirit. They see that and they're so enraging jealous of you that you can live that way, you know, that you can live with trust, that you can have this empathy for people, that you can forgive people, that you can love people the way you do, that people love you and support you. And they see that and they want to break it. And they're going to try everything they can to break that. When you realize what they're doing and you cut off with them, they're so enraged with that. Now they have to go back to this person. They're desperately relying on this person for narcissistic supply, because without that person, they would be nothing. Narcissists are completely dependent. Their survival depends on the enabler, on having at least one enabler in their life that they can always go to get that supply. And that person might just be telling them, you're so amazing, you're so wonderful, you're so powerful, you're so rich, you're so handsome, whatever they're telling them that makes them feel better. And that's how they go on. She is remarried, but he still has a connection to her. I thought he loved her still. He might still love her. and even though she's still remarried, he's obviously still wanting her back. He's obviously needing her approval or needing her enabling in some way. And she's obviously still giving it to him. If she's a narcissist, then she's probably juggling these people in her life because she's getting this kind of supply from him, this kind of supply from him, that kind of supply from her, however it goes, but you don't want to be part of that. She's not lucky. There's probably a part of you that's going, well, what does she have? Or it's not fair, that he takes care of her or he's kind to her, whatever. She's not lucky. She is not lucky. You are lucky because you got away. You are lucky because you cut off the people, and you'll always see when they get a new supply or when they go back to their old supply, you'll see how smug they are about it. And you'll see how smug the new supply is. They're like, I got him and you didn't. I got him. And they're super smug. And it's going to hurt. Like, it really hurts to see that. And a lot of people talk about, how on Facebook and other social media, then that's when they love to post photos together sometimes. And then they're, oh, my husband is so amazing. My boyfriend is so amazing. This person is so great. And the harder a person is doing that, the harder they're trying to make it look amazing, the worse the situation actually is. They're just trying to convince themselves by convincing other people that everything is amazing. But that's not the case. That is entirely an illusion. That is entirely superficial. It is just an appearance that is not real. When you penetrate that any deeper to the core, you find out that is a sham. It's totally unreal. It's just unfortunate, that the new supply doesn't realize, or they do. And in this case of her, she's just enabling it. She knows who he is. She's enabling it because she's getting something out of it. And when people defend narcissists, it's either because they're so brainwashed and so dependent on whatever they're getting, whether it's finances or love, seemingly love or attention or something. They're so desperately dependent on that they're going to defend that person. That's a very sad situation. But it's not real. They're not getting anything better than you got. They're not getting better treatment. It's just going to look like that. And you got lucky. You are the lucky one. Just keep reminding yourself of that. If ever that inkling of, well, it's not fair because he supports her and he gives her money and he just took all my money and took everything from me. Remind yourself that you won because you got away. You won because you got to start your life over. And that woman is still entangled in that dirty, dirty web. And you don't want to be involved in that. No money is worth that. No property is worth that. No compliment or flattery or attention is worth that. You are the lucky one here. You are the lucky one. And remind yourself every time you see someone looking super smug, that they think that they won. They think that they won this great prize. And you know what they won. You know what they got. And by the way, they didn't win. You conceded. You conceded. You left the playing field because you didn't want that anymore. You realized what that was. And that person is now going to go through that situation because that's what they choose and that's their karma. And sometimes people want to warn them. I get a lot of these messages. I feel like I want to tell them the truth. I want to let them know who that person is, because when you know the truth, you want to share it with everyone. You want to tell them. And then it ends up making you look bad because that person doesn't want to know the truth. If they wanted to know the truth, they would seek out the truth. They don't want to know the truth. And sometimes months later or years later, you'll get a message from someone and they're like, remember so-and-so? Yeah, I was with him too. And wow, was that messed up. And now I realize kind of who he is or who she is or what that situation was. And I just wanted to get a reality check from you. I wanted to compare some notes and see really what happened, because this is what he or she was telling me, but this is what I suspect was happening. And you were around and you had just left. And I want to know. And sometimes you'll get those experiences and that's incredibly validating, but it's not going to happen right away. That's going to happen down the road. Their son is now an adult and they still communicate about him as if using him to keep in touch with each other. Yeah, a very sad reality is how children of narcissists will end up being pawns. The narcissist will use the child or the children as pawns of control with the ex. And in this case, if they're both narcissists, then it's this really sick game. You know, as someone described last week, you know, about the mother of his children, who is very toxic, and he's trying to get some alone time with his kids, and she won't allow it, you know, because the narcissist will always have to triangulate your relationship with other people, especially with the children. They want every communication to go through them. They want to supervise everything. They want to control everything. She won't let him have any time alone with his kids. And if ever he's starting to bond with his kids, she'll do something to absolutely ruin it, make him so angry that he has to leave the house so that he doesn't freak out, you know, and lose his shit in front of her and in front of the kids. And he said, literally, you know, if he had grabbed onto that kid and said, no, this is my time, she would have grabbed onto the other arm, and it would have been like both of them like ripping this kid apart by both arms. And that is so sad. And that is so sad that this is the reality for so many families now who are sharing custody, co-parenting with a narcissist. And I can't even imagine how difficult that is. And one thing I would like to do, I found someone in my area actually who specializes in very high conflict divorce. And she actually went through the situation. She's a psychologist, and she has a lot of insight, I think, on the matter. I want to get an interview with her so I could ask her some questions. This is not at all my area of expertise, family courts and children in custody. I know very little about that. I only know the stories that are told to me. The minimal experience I had, you know, like 12 years ago when I had to get a protection order from the mother of the child of an ex-narcissist. And I thought she was the bad person in the situation. But, you know, I have minimal experience with that. I want to bring in an expert who can give some really great advice to people on how to approach that, how to approach the co-parenting, how to approach the custody battle, how to approach, you know, the family court hearings and all of that, and how to be armed with knowledge and wisdom so that you can succeed as much as possible in that situation. Because I can't even imagine how horrible that is, you know, for the parent, for the same parent who's trying, you know, just to get their child to safety so that their child won't have to go through that. And then how awful is that for the kids who are taking this with them? You know, they're going to need serious therapy. That child, that son who's an adult, if he's not already a narcissist, he's going to need serious therapy, you know, on coming to understand this, coming to resolve this, you know, this deep conflict that he has within himself, all the lies that were fed to him, probably by both parents. He was mad when I spoke to her. Who was mad? The child was mad, or your ex was mad when you spoke to his ex, the other ex? The ex was mad when I spoke to his ex-wife. Yeah, they hate that. Because again, that comes back to that same thing. You figured him out. You know who he is. And he definitely doesn't want you comparing notes with his ex-wife. Even if she's a narcissist, you know, he definitely doesn't want you comparing notes with her, because you might realize even more, or you might enlighten her to something that she didn't know, or she might suddenly cut off her enabling when she has some realization of some kind of truth, when she's able to let go of whatever it is that she was trying to get out of him. Yeah, they hate that. You know, I've had this opportunity, I think 3 different times, 2 different exes, 3 different exes of the ex, who contacted me on social media. And the only reason that they knew who I was is, of course, because the narcissist loves to talk about their exes. They will talk them up and down. They'll praise them positively when they want the new supply to do something like this person did, or to feel insecure about themselves and how they should do something differently to be as good as that person. Or then they'll talk shit about the person when they want to pump up, you know, this person, or get them, you know, to feel like they're on the same side. They'll always triangulate that. The thing is that they'll bring up their name often enough. You know, nowadays with social media, people aren't stupid. They go online, they Google people, they look on Facebook, they find these people, you know, and the last time this happened, this one woman suddenly started getting in contact with my ex as I was leaving him, and he was freaked out. He called me. He was like, don't, you know, she's going to try to reach out with you, and she's going to try to feed you lies, and don't listen to her. She's just jealous. She's so jealous of our love. And I'm thinking, you're deluded. Like, he didn't even realize how much I had understood at that point. And you bet I accepted that phone call. You bet I talked to her, and you bet that was a validating conversation for both of us, because wow, You know, just to hear somebody else say that they went through that exact same thing or something very, very similar with that same person who tried to convince you that you were the crazy one, who tried to convince you that something was wrong with you. And then you hear this person who is totally sane and a wonderful, giving, compassionate, empathic, you know, forgiving person. And you're like, okay, yeah, it's not me. You know, and sometimes the universe will give you that help and will give you that conversation of total validation. And sometimes it won't. Sometimes you just have to find it within yourself and validate yourself. And that's the first step, is to validate yourself and to know that you didn't do anything wrong. You got tricked. You got fooled into that. And the best thing that you did was to leave that person behind. The best thing that you did was to go no contact with that person. The best thing you did was to move forward with your life. If you get really lucky and someone comes into your life later and says, wow, yeah, that person did the same thing to me, then you're extra lucky. It's like the cherry on top of it, you know, the extra validation. But that validation has to come primarily from inside yourself. You know, don't wait for his permission. Don't wait for him to acknowledge you. Don't wait for him to acknowledge the truth, because that's not going to happen. And in the case of her, you know, she's a narcissist. It may never happen that you get that validation from her. She might end up spinning your mind even more because she has so much to lose and she's going to defend him and defend everything. So don't wait on someone else exterior to give you that validation. You've got to validate yourself. You've got to give yourself permission to move forward. You've got to give yourself permission to validate your needs, your feelings, your perceptions of reality, that was real. If you perceived it that way, that was real for you. That's your truth. You got to take that forward no matter what anybody else is saying. You can't let them convince you, because that's what gaslighting is. And that's what they did. The whole relationship was gaslight you into doubting yourself, into doubting your perception of reality, into doubting your feelings, stuffing away your needs, feeling like you're needy for wanting to talk about your feelings about something. You know, they gaslighted you the whole way. And if you give them that opportunity, even in the aftermath, even after you've gotten out, if you're waiting for their validation to admit that they did wrong, they're just going to gaslight you again. And it's going to be even harder. So you've got to give yourself that validation. You've got to give that to yourself. It's got to come from inside you. She didn't defend him, but I could tell she wasn't honest either, because she plays him also. Yeah. She didn't defend him to you because probably deep down she knows the truth, but she's hopelessly dependent upon him. So she's not going to out him, you know, because then she knows that if the word gets back to him, then he's going to cut her off, and she's not going to get whatever finances, whatever she's trying to get from him or their child, or however it's working, you know. That's why you've got to, first and foremost, you've got to give that validation to yourself. You've got to let yourself know that you did the right thing. The win was leaving. You got to tell your ego that you did win, because your ego wants to be right. Your ego wants them to admit what they did wrong, so you know that you're right. So you get that validation, and you're not going to get that from them. So you got to give that to yourself. You got to convince yourself that you know it was right. You know you did the right thing. You know you did the right thing to leave. And you know that person is never going to admit what's wrong. So you got to convince your ego that you did win, because the ego wants to be right, it wants to be wrong, and it wants to be in control, right? Taking control is going no contact. Being right is saying, I get it. I saw what happened. I'm not going back for more, you know, and winning is getting away. Winning is starting your life over without that person contaminating it, without that person poisoning your life with that toxicity, which inevitably bleeds through your entire life. It doesn't just stay in the relationship sector. It affects your work. It affects your home. It affects your friendships. It affects absolutely everything else in your life. You won. You got away. You won. And sometimes the ego just needs a little bit of convincing, you know, and those are the 3 points that you got to convince the ego. You're right. You won, and you're in control. The no contact, you got away, and you know damn well what happened. You know, you don't need their validation for that. Yeah, you don't need their validation. You got to give that to yourself. I'm really sorry. I know how hard that is. And to have to still see that in your neighborhood, you know, even though he left, but the remnants of him and those other people are still in your town or in your neighborhood. And to have to see that is just, it's a constant reminder. So every time you see that, you want to reprogram inside, you know, because your inner dialogue is going to probably go, to the negative stuff and it's not fair. And how did that happen? And it's so not fair. Where's the karma here? So you got to retrain yourself, you know, and that is your ego. So you want to hit those 3 points with your ego. I won, I got away. I won, I got away. I'm right. I know what happened. He wronged me. I'm right. I did the right thing by leaving. I'm in control. He's not in control of me anymore. I'm going no contact. It's okay that you broke the no contact. You gave up your power briefly. You remembered what that's like. You remember what it feels like to be helpless, to be out of control, to be powerless. You remember what that's like. And now you remember that you want to be no contact. Going back to no contact means you're in control of your life. You're in control of your choices. You're in control of your thoughts. You're in control of your feelings. You're in control of your actions. When you break the no contact, that's when you feel out of control. That's when you feel like that person can get you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. They can get you to think things you wouldn't normally think. They can get you to feel things you wouldn't normally feel. They can get you to accept versions of reality that you know aren't true. That's when you lose all your power. So no contact is the way to keep the power. During our marriage, my ex-husband had an affair with an ex-girlfriend of his. When I left him, he partnered with a third party, not with her. When he broke up with his life partner, he went back to the first ex-girlfriend. I felt sorry for her when I saw her still hanging around him 30 years on. He clearly used her to dump his shit on when he needed to. I felt generally sorry for her. Yeah. I mean, when you look at that, you feel sorry, right? But then at the same time, you got to realize that that person is choosing that. That is an adult. That person needs to accept 100% responsibility for their life. Something is drawing them to that situation. She's choosing that for whatever reason. She chose to take him back. She chose to let him dump on her. It is a choice. It is a choice to be a martyr, you know, and it's sad, you know, because part of you probably wanted to like tell her the truth and like wake her up, but that's not your karma. That's not your problem. That's not your responsibility. You know, you got to take care of you. You got to make sure that you're healthy. You got to make sure that you're sane, that you're taking responsibility for yourself and your life, and not to feel too much pity for that, you know, because then you might end up doing something that you didn't want to do. Sometimes, you know, people see the new supply and then they want to reach out and warn that person, and then they become a target of a smear campaign, and the flying monkeys come in and they're defending themselves, and like the whole town is up against them, and then it's a really bad situation. So, you know, I always tell people it's not your responsibility to warn the new victim. That's theirs to figure out, and they'll figure it out if they want to figure it out. Yes, that's true. He's also addicted to porn and online sex with whores, and he also knows I know, and he still denied it. You know, that's the kicker, isn't it? When they know you catch them red-handed and they still deny it, and they fully expect you to believe them. That's the entitlement. The entitlement says, I should be able to do this and get away with it. You should just deal with it. You should accept my version of reality. You should just get over it. That's their entitlement. And the pathological lying to the point where I think they actually believe their lies. I think they just convince themselves, you know, they somehow rationalize how that's okay. They somehow rationalize how they were entitled or deserved to do that. And that affair was totally fine. And, you know, if they're fucking a whore, then they're not really cheating on you because it's a whore. They paid her, you know. There's always some kind of rationalization in their mind that they use to set themselves free, to set themselves off the hook, and they will deny it up and down. They never admit what they do wrong unless they can blame you. You know, well, I had an affair because, you know, you won't do all these crazy BDSM things for me. You won't let me tie you up and beat you and abuse you. You know, you won't let me do this, or you won't put out 2 or 3 times a day. And that's what I need. So you're not meeting my needs. So I'm going to go meet my needs elsewhere. And that's just the way it is. It's your fault. You know, that is the only time that they will admit that they did something wrong, if they can turn it around and blame you for it. And it's just so exasperating. And that's why you just have to walk away. There's no rationalizing with it. There's no winning that. There's no getting them to actually accept responsibility without turning it around and blaming it on you and feeling worse about it. There's no way out of that. Candy, my ex-life partner after our breakup had 3 suicide attempts. The way I saw it, that could have been me. I was the lucky one. I got away. Yeah, you did. Yeah, because they call it crazy making for a reason. It will drive you insane. You could lose the kite string of reality. You could lose that kite string and lose your shit. You could totally lose track of what's real, and not only can you do things that you wouldn't normally do and compromise your integrity, so many people get to that point where they try to commit suicide because they just feel so helpless. They feel like the situation is unresolvable. They have just lost it. They've lost total grip of reality. And that is so sad. Yeah, you are the lucky one. You got away. You won. That's why I tell people you won. You got away. You won. Remind yourself you won. No matter how much else you lost, you got to write that off and recognize that the win here is that you got away. You got to start your life over again. That's the win. You're not that person locked up in a psychological hospital, drugged with psychiatric medicines because they lost control, they lost sense of reality, or they tried to commit suicide, or worse yet, sometimes I get emails from people telling me, I'm about to kill this person. No, don't do that. Calm down. You don't want to lose your freedom. You don't want to lose your life over this person. This person is not worth it. It's just not worth it. Cut your losses. Exactly. You got to cut your losses and run. Cut your losses and run. It is the only way, because sometimes the only thing that you leave these situations with is your sanity and your health. And maybe your health and your sanity it's holding on by a thin string, but getting away with that is winning because you can rebuild that. You can bring your physical health back. You can bring your sanity back. Getting out is the win. He did grind me down to almost losing my life once, and I took him back. But once I learned of the horror, I was done. And this time I didn't have a breakdown. Good. Yeah, sometimes we have to stay until like that one thing that's just so horrible pierces the denial, pierces the wishful thinking that they're going to change, pierces the wishful thinking that it's not really as bad as we imagined it is and we're just over imaginative, or maybe we're just being jealous and that's not really happening. Sometimes you just got to get to that point where you can just see it so clearly and the reality is so awful that it snaps you out of that denial. I lost so much financially. I would joke with the expression, he got the assets and I got my life. Damn straight. And you can't put a value on your life. You could lose thousands of dollars. You could lose a house. You could lose a car. You could lose so much in the material world. But if you get out with your life, if you get out with your health and your sanity, you won. You won. And you could always rebuild the finances because, sometimes what'll happen is like you get one of these parasitic psychopaths, and they've got no job, they've got no money, they've got no house, no car, and they want all of yours. And maybe they just drain all of that out of you. And afterward, you're like, oh my God, I lost so much, or maybe they even like took your business, like in my situation or something. But it's like, you know what? You built that business. You saved that money. You earned that house. You earned that car. You can go out there and get it again because you know how to do it. And that person can't do that. That person doesn't have the inner resources to do that, which is why they got to suck it out of someone else. They got to steal it from someone else. They got to wrong someone else to take that from them. They got to deceive and delude a person into thinking, that something else is going on and then take it all away from them because they can't do it for themselves. They're completely inept. They're completely a parasite in society, and they can only do it by taking it from someone else. You can always do it again, and you can always do it better, because the business that you built for him that he took, that was like the rough draft of what you're building now. That was you figuring it out. You learned in the way. He learned nothing. You know, you had the house, you had the car, you had the finances, you had the whatever. He took it all from you and you left with $0 in your bank account, and seemingly he got away with whatever. That's fine. He's going to run that into the ground. You gave him a car, he's going to run it into the ground. He's going to destroy that car. You give him a house or something, he's going to destroy that house. He's going to lose that house. Like, he's always going to lose it. He or she is always going to lose it. They're always going to have to go to someone else for it. And you can always do it again because you have the inner resources to do it, to pull it through. During a roundtable meeting with the legal team, I told him that he had lost the biggest asset he ever owned. His response, I know, that's you. Yeah, yeah, they know. They know you're their golden ticket, you know, when they see you, whether you're the one providing the finances or you're the one providing the love and the support, whatever it is you're providing, if they latched on to you, they needed that. They needed that for survival. You know, and maybe it seems like they found someone else who's giving that to them, but probably not in the same way, because you're amazing. And whatever you do is amazing. You know, the way that you cook is special. The way that you love is special. The way that you show a person that you care is special. Who you are is special. You are different than everybody else. We are all unique, right? We're all equal, but unique. And that there's something about you that makes you special. And there's something about the next person that makes them special, but they're never going to get you. They're never going to get exactly what it was that you offered them. You walked away with that because that's who you are, you know, and that is what he lost. He lost you. He lost you. He lost. When you left, you won. And you got to get through that through your head, you know, to all of you who are listening to this later, to all of you who are thinking, you know, I lost so much. You always got to reframe that in your ego mind. And I still do that to myself. Every time one of these thoughts creeps into my mind, I lost all that money. I lost all that time I invested in that business. I won. I have to reframe that. I have to remind myself, I won. I got away. I'm not there anymore. I'm not the slave anymore. I'm not being used anymore. I won my freedom. I got away. I was surprised by this admission. I think he was at a low point and it came out at a subconscious level. Probably sometimes that'll happen where it just slips out and they didn't mean it to happen. Yeah, and that was just one of those amazing things. Like, sometimes you get really lucky and the universe validates you in some way, either because you run into an ex or because your ex, you know, an ex of theirs, and they tell you the truth, or your ex somehow admits it, or someone runs into them and tells you how horrible they looked and stuff. Sometimes you get really lucky like that, and you just want to tuck that in your little pocket and know, but remember that it's still coming from inside you, that validation. He hated me. I knew from his reaction that I wasn't missed. Well, the reason why he hated you was because you figured him out. This is a different person, by the way. You figured him out. You figured out who he was. That's why he hated you. He despised you because you figured it out. And, you know, yeah, he didn't miss you, because if you were around and you knew who he was and you were continually reminding him of who he was and what a bad person he was, or, you know, the bad things that he did, if you were reminding him who he was, he's going to hate you. You know, it's like when you meet a bully, right? The bully doesn't actually hate you. They hate themselves. They always hate themselves, and they project that hatred onto you. He hated the real person you saw in him. Yeah, they hate themselves, so they have to project it on you. Anytime you see someone and they're like projecting all this hatred on you, and you're like, wow, what's wrong with me? Because that's what every codependent says, right? What's wrong with me? What did I do? Oh my God, did I do something wrong? Did I do something that offended you? I'm so sorry. What did I do? How can I make it right? Right? But stop for a minute and recognize, if you didn't do something wrong, it's good to make sure that you didn't, right? Maybe you offended them, but if you didn't, and that person for no other reason is just spiteful and mean and attacking you and doing it covertly so that no one else notices, or there's always that plausible deniability, you can just recognize that that's not about you, that person is projecting their self-hatred on you. They hate the fact that you have, or you are, something that they want, or they want to be like. You know, sometimes bullies will even tell you that. Sometimes they'll have a moment of lucidity and they'll tell you, you know, I wanted to hate you at first, but then I realized I just wanted to be more like you. And it doesn't mean that that person had like a lifetime breakthrough and they're not going to be a manipulative person anymore. But every now and then you get really lucky and someone has that lucid breakthrough and they admit that to you. But most of the time, you're just going to have to realize it within yourself. That person projecting the self-hatred, it's just because they hate themselves. And if you recognize them for who they are and you see that, they're going to hate you even more because you're holding that mirror. You know, and you're holding, we are a mirror of one another, right? And so when you're holding that mirror and they see their reflection, they don't like that, but they're going to associate you with what they don't like, not themselves, because the narcissist will never look at themselves. They don't self-examine. They don't have the power of self-awareness, you know, self-improvement. They just don't do those things. They just don't. So, all right, I think I'm going to wrap this up for now, unless there's any other questions that you guys have. I'm really glad that you brought these things up today. I think this is what a lot of people are going through right now with the Mars retrograde, the anger, the frustration coming up. So right, they lack self-worth and project onto their partners. Exactly. And it's much worse when you know the truth. When they know that you know the truth, they're going to hate you all the more. You know, and you can't let that get to you. You can't let that confuse you into thinking that something's wrong with you for seeing that truth or for calling it out. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. And I'm going to say it one more time because I know it's so hard to get it in there sometimes. You won. If you got away, you won. You know, don't beat yourself up if you broke the no contact and you got hooked into that again and you lost your power, but then you went no contact again, you took your power back. That's what's important. You're not stupid. Don't beat yourself up for that. You learned something and now move forward with your power. Now move forward knowing that you won because you got away. You won. So thank you. A message to Candy, love yourself. Don't have this person consume your being. Exactly. You know, because it's one thing to be in the relationship where they're consuming your whole life. But if you leave and your thoughts are just constantly on this person and you're just obsessed with them and what happened, they're still winning. They're still winning because you're still there. Like even if your physical body isn't there, but all you can do is think about it and think about them and obsess about them and go on their Facebook page and look at them. They're still winning, right? So you got to leave that all behind. You got to cut that off. No contact means don't look at their Facebook, don't look at their Twitter, don't look at their Instagram, block that all so you don't even have the temptation, you know, and get out and start your life over and get yourself every day to work on this. Every time these thoughts come up, remind yourself that you don't want to be a prisoner to that anymore. You don't. You took up photography as a new hobby. Good. That's excellent. Because I like to remind people too that like when you find a sense of purpose, when you find something that matters to you, something that's meaningful, something that's bigger than you, whatever that is, that purpose becomes bigger. It starts magnetizing you forward toward the future. You start to have things to look forward to rather than getting pulled back into the gravity of the past. That's excellent. New hobbies, new interests, things that you love. Met so many new people and people appreciating me and my art. See? Exactly. Starting a new life, having passions, using your gifts, exploring life, having adventures, creating a sense of purpose, something meaningful, something that matters to you, that will pull you forward. That will pull you out. That will pull you out of the gravity of the past and rewiring your brain. You know, reminding yourself, convincing your ego that you won by getting away, and don't let him win. Don't let her win by letting your every thought, feeling, and emotion to go back to that. You know, it's natural in the aftermath to have thoughts and flashbacks and whatnot, but you also want to get control of that. You want to retrain your brain, you know, to reframe what happened, you know, that you won. They didn't win. Even if you lost a lot. You didn't lose your life. You didn't lose your sanity. You won. And now you can create beautiful things moving forward. You can create the beautiful life that you've always dreamed of because you don't have that person in your life anymore. Oh, it looks like we lost you for a second. Maybe you're your internet crashed. But I think I'm going to wind this down for now. I will be back here in about 4.5 hours at 6 o'clock Pacific time. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing your struggles, because that's the part that everybody really relates to, because we've all been in that struggle, and it is really, really hard, but there is a way out. You're not alone. You can move forward. You can change your life. You can create the life that you dream of. Thank you so much. I'm sending you all a big hug, and see you soon.